So this is a basic overview of the roles of the various different players and their abilities in the game. It is not a detailed, precise rule book. If you want to know the very detailed intricacies of your role, please read the PDF. This is just an overview so you have a sense of where you fit into the rest of the game. The first role is the only beginner level role, is the freshman, and the freshman is just the basic player. The basic player, the only ability they have is to vote every single day, as with everyone else. There's no power or no abilities beyond that. So this role is potentially still very powerful, but it's a good role if you're unfamiliar with the game. Or if you don't necessarily have a huge amount of time to give, then this could be an ideal role.
The next role is the Mafia members. The Mafia get together every night and decide amongst themselves whom they want to kill. They get to kill the number of living players divided by 20, rounded up. The Godfather is the one who communicates that decision to Mr. Howe and Mr. Pearson. Very importantly, the Mafia members may have second roles, so pay attention to that.
The business major or the engaged couple. The business major, these two roles are very similar. Both of them have to do with special powers during the vote. So the business major can cast a negative vote for both the Part 1 and the Part 2 vote, which means they cast a negative vote both when they're voting for fraternities and sororities, as well as when they are voting for other players in their own fraternity or sorority. The engaged couple has 2 votes for both positive votes, 2 votes for someone within their own fraternity or sorority.
Next is the campus stalker. The campus stalker may inquire about one other player each night, and the stalker is informed by Mr. Howe and Mr. Pearson if that player is in the Mafia or not. The stalkers can only inquire about living, poisoned, or severely injured players, and if the stalker inquires about an armed robber, then Mr. Howe and Mr. Pearson will inform the stalker that that person is in fact in the Mafia, whether or not they actually are. Now there's a sub-role to this, the naive campus stalker. One of the stalkers in the game will be told that the person they're inquiring about is innocent regardless of their actual status.
Next role is the health center nurse. The health center nurse selects one player every single night, and that player is then saved from the Mafia or from poisoning. So if the Mafia attempts to kill that person and the health center nurse has identified that player as being protected, then that person does not die. If a person has been poisoned the previous night and a health center nurse selects that person to save, then that person will continue to survive, and the effects of the poisoning will not be realized. And that's true whether or not the nurse identifies the poisoned player on the first night of the poisoning or the second night of the poisoning.
The next role is the UMD Shadchan. The Shadchan may choose 2 different players once in the game to become star-crossed lovers. These players will have this status for the remainder of the game, and if one of them dies out of depression, the other one kills themselves as well.
The resident assistant. So each day an RA protects one fraternity and sorority and one player, any player, to completely protect for voting. And what that means is that any votes that that fraternity or sorority receives are completely canceled. So even if that frat or sorority receives the most number of votes and would potentially go to court, if they are under the protection of an RA, they're not going to go to court. And the same holds true for a player within fraternity sorority. So one frat or sorority that happens to go to court, if one player who receives the most votes who should be executed by the court but is protected by an RA, then that person is not killed.
And this is the Route 1 armed robber. The armed robber kills whomever murdered him or her. If they die during the day vote, then the person whom they voted for will also die. If they're killed at night, then the player who used a roll against them gets killed by the armed robber as well. If the Mafia kills the armed robber, then the armed robber will kill one person from the Mafia whom the Godfather selects earlier. And as previously stated, if the stalker inquires about the armed robber, the stalker will be told that the armed robber is in the Mafia.
The last intermediate level role is a Diamondback Paperboy. So twice during the game, the Diamondback Paperboy will identify 2 players. We'll call them Player A and Player B. Now, Player A we will inform player B the role of player A. The Diamondback Paperboy, him or herself, does not find out any information whatsoever, and player A is not told anything about this whatsoever, but player B will in fact learn the role of player A.
And now for the advanced roles. The first advanced role is the Community Assistant, or CA. The CA learns the roles of any player when they become a ghost. The CA does not learn the roles of any players who have been found to be underage.
The pre-med student is a day role. Pre-med students perform autopsies on the dead, so they know how every player who was killed outside of execution in court died. So we don't tell who killed or necessarily why they were killed, but we will tell the pre-med student how they were killed. So if someone was killed by, for example, say the drunkard, then the pre-med student is informed that this person died by the drunkard.
The next role is the Campus Cuddler. Once again, the Campus Cuddler sneaks into another player's room and steals their role. The Cuddler gets that role for the rest of the game, and the person who has the role stolen from them loses that role and reverts to a freshman. The role loses any limitations that the previous owner of the role had, and the Cuddler now has the role anew as though they were starting the game just now with that role.
A chemistry TA, twice in a game, so a chem TA selects one other player, and that person is poisoned. So the way poisoning works is, say on night 2, the chemistry TA selects one person to be poisoned. That person is then poisoned. The next day, that person has the full range of their abilities, but if that person is not saved by the next night, in this case night 3, then the poisoned player dies.
And next is the Godfather. The Godfather is the head of the Mafia and communicates the Mafia's kill choices every night to Mr. Howe and Mr. Pearson. If inquired about, the Godfather is considered innocent. If the Godfather's fraternity/sorority is voted to court and the Godfather is voted to be executed, the Godfather, being able to rig the courts, retroactively sends a different fraternity/sorority to court. Therefore, it is impossible to kill the Godfather by voting. However, the Godfather is not immune to other types of killing. It should be noted that there's only one Godfather in the game, and if the Godfather is killed, the Mafia automatically loses.
Next is the Professor. So every single night a Professor selects one player, and that player will become bogged down with homework. It means that the Professor puts so much homework on this player, that that player is unable to perform their night action. That lasts just one night, has no other effects other than preventing another player from being able to use their night action.
Next is the Drunkard. One time during the game, a drunkard can pick a fraternity or sorority at night, and a random person from that fraternity or sorority will be killed using a random generator. Should the drunkard pick their own fraternity or sorority, there is a possibility that they will actually kill themselves.
Court secretary will eavesdrop on 5% of the total number of voters, rounded down, and will know how those players voted. So that 5% is selected completely randomly, and then the court secretary will be told how those people voted. So last year we didn't have. The results of all the votes for who voted for whom was published. This year we are not doing that, and so we've created the role of the court secretary, who is the only person who definitively knows some subset of how the votes actually turned out.
Next is the English 101 professor. 4 times during the game, the English 101 professor will select a student and force that student to revise a paper. If you look in the status section of the PDF, you'll see that someone who has to revise a paper is someone who is forced to vote the same exact way they did the previous day. An English 101 professor may not pick the same person twice, and they may not select a ghost or a student found to be underage. The student that is selected to revise a paper will only find out about this status an hour before the voting is due, meaning 5 p.m.
Next is the bodyguard. So every night, a bodyguard selects one player to protect. So this is sort of similar to the health center nurse, except that the bodyguard has a further role, which is not just that that player is protected, but that if the person they are protecting is somehow attacked, say by the Mafia or by some other role, then not only does the bodyguard protect the person that they're protecting and the person is saved, but the person who does the attacking is severely injured and is sent to the hospital. So that essentially means that the player who's severely injured basically essentially will sit out a day.
The law student selects one player each day, and if that player would have been killed in the day vote, the lawyer saves them, and instead the player with the second most votes in that fraternity or sorority will get killed instead.
The last role that we have is the couple next door. So, despite the plurality of the name, this is in fact an individual role. And what happens is once during a game, a couple next door will identify one other player, and that player is forced to sleep throughout the entirety of the next day because they weren't able to sleep the previous night. The last thing I want to say is, well, first of all, good luck to everyone. We hope you do enjoy it, but we do highly encourage everyone to please read through the PDF of the rules very carefully. We would like everyone to please try to learn their roles as well as they possibly can. Learn the details of your roles, know the intricacies of your roles, know what you're doing, and then please, please, please don't forget to vote. We don't want anyone to become students found to be underage. We don't want anyone to lose the game because they didn't vote. Please vote. It takes a couple minutes, and when you do vote and you do perform your role, please make sure that you're doing it correctly because we're not going to give anyone a second chance. If you mess up, you mess up. There's no second chances. So please learn it well. Good luck.